Hi, I'm Bill Attardi, and this is Learners Live, something you may not know. As you can see on e-learning showcase, we posted 5 different virtual learning sessions, as you can see. And this time in June, we're going to do STP is Customer-Centric Marketing. It's all about segmentation, targeting, and positioning. But before I do that, we have a sponsor, and the sponsor is FSG, Facilities Solution Group, a people-centric company.
What drives a business? What truly makes it thrive? Is it a product, a service, an idea? It's people. Creative people, collaborative people, hard-working people. Through sweat, tears, triumphs, and failures, they design, they build, they serve, they create, they teach, and they buy. In offices and warehouses, hospitals and schools, stores, restaurants, and buildings of all types, people come together to work, to share a meal, to learn, to grow, and to do what people do best: live. And it's these moments, these acts of connection and purpose, that inspire FSG to build and support the spaces where business and life take place. FSG stands ready to build better electrical systems, to create more impactful lighting solutions, deploy advanced building controls and monitoring, design and fabricate dynamic signage, provide cutting-edge technology, and drive innovation for a sustainable future with EV charging and solar technology. In this, FSG finds our true calling. We don't just service buildings. We serve the people who bring them to life. After all, the real power behind a building is the people inside.
Thank you, FSG. And now we're going to talk about STP. It really is a marketing exercise that focuses on customer-centric marketing. It moves the focus from mass marketing to customer-centric marketing. And I think we'll all agree that customers have varying needs and preferences. The reality is you're not going to sell everybody. There are a lot of customers out there, and they're just not going to buy your stuff, no matter what you do. And that's okay, because there's lots of customers out there. And the important part of STP is that it's a logical flow. It's a sequential, interdependent process. It moves from segmenting to targeting to strategically positioning your products or services in the minds of the consumer. And it does really 3 things. It improves your customer engagement, it enhances marketing communications, and ultimately, the reason we're all in business is to create and drive greater sales and profitability. That's what, if you do STP effectively, that's the goal, and that's what you're going to accomplish. So let's talk about it. First of all, let's talk about segmentation. That's to identify specific market segments. Some information first. Let's talk about the world and the population of the world. Just information. We all know that there's 8.2 billion people. And this is the way the top 10 break down. As you know, India and China have almost 40% of the world's population. India passed China for the first time, and will probably be in that position for a long time because their birth rate is higher than China's. The United States, even though we have only 350 million people compared to the top two, we have more upper and middle class customers in our country than either one of the top two. That's just the way it is. And that means that the United States has a very strong economic foundation. And another area that has a strong foundation is the European Union. The European Union, made up of 27 countries, has 448 million people. And because they are a group together and their economies work together, they're a formidable economy. The United States, of course, is made up of 50 states, unless you count Canada, and that's our 51st. But I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Anyway, California is the largest state, obviously, and you can see the top 10. And it's important to understand where the people are, because those are your customers. That's where your customers are. And that's the first step in segmentation, is to make sure you understand where the size of and where the people are. Market segmentation, as you know, in marketing schools all over the world, teach these 4 areas that you must define in order to make market segmentation fruitful for any business. Where are they? Geographic. What is the ages of the customers, the demographics, the psychographic, and also the behavior of your customers. Let's talk about the age first. Demographics. Generations, as you can see, are broken down into these particular areas. I'm sure you're all familiar with those. You've heard them over and over again. The key demographic is the 25 to 54. That's about 40–45% of the population in the United States, okay? So you can see the breakdown. And here's something very interesting that I read recently, and that is in 10 years, the 65 and older age group will outnumber the 18 and under age group. That's amazing, isn't it? Well, all I can say is for you young families, you got to have more babies, okay? Because this is an aging population, and it's important as for business purposes, it's important because you not only have to know the ages of your customer base now, but you have to know what they are 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What's the trend in the age group? That's a very important segment of your customer base because their preferences and their wants and needs change as they age. Here's a good figure that deals with the growth of the population. As you can see, back in 1950, back when I was selling light bulbs, 65 and over was only about 8% of the market. And now it's about 12%. But by 2050, you're going to see an 80-20 kind of mix between the over 65 and under 65. And if you need to understand that based on the product and the services that you provide, because the needs of people, the needs of customers change with age. And they also change with ethnicity. And this is a good graph because it gives you a sense as to what the makeup of the country is. And as you can see, in 1990, 76% was white, and the rest you can see the percentages. Well, you look at today, 2020, 2030, we're talking about 60% white and 40% other ethnicities. And when you look at it going forward 30, 40 years from now, we're talking about the white population being 40% and the Hispanic population almost 30%. As you can see, the African American and Asian percentage hasn't changed much. It hasn't changed in 50 years and probably won't change. But I want to make a point here because this country is a melting point. And maybe this isn't as significant as it looks as far as defining ethnicity. When you have marriages and a melting pot like we have in this country, you're not going to know what real ethnicity people are in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 50 years from now. That's my opinion, obviously. Because you're going to know what their ancestry is and maybe the background. But I think as a country, we're probably the biggest melting pot there is. And I think that's a point to be made when you're dealing with your customer base. Okay, another area that's very important, it's a sophisticated breakdown of your customers. It's called VALs, values, attitudes, and lifestyles. And this is what we teach. We teach that customers can be broken down into these 8 categories: innovators, thinkers, achievers, experiencers, believers, strivers, makers, and survivors. This is a real sophisticated way to segment the market. And more with artificial intelligence, you're able, with polling and focus groups, to get more specific as to the specific values, attitudes, and lifestyles of your customer base are. If you're doing business with other businesses, B2B, there's another way to segment that market, and they call it firmographic segmentation. And this is what that is. It's much more detailed than the consumer or customer breakdown segmentation. We're talking about industry type, the type of business they are, the size of business, what the annual volume is, the growth over time, how many employees do they have, what's the turnover of those employees, where are they located, what's the executive structure, the sales cycle, as well as who are the competitors to that particular company that you want to do business with. Business markets do have specific areas that you need to focus on. Demographics always comes into play, even with business, but it takes on a little different focus besides just age. It comes in with size, with sales, with profit, with number of employees. Every industry, every business has to register with the NAICS to get a classification. You can look it up. It's important that you understand what classification that business is that you want to do business with. Also, are they buying the product from you to make a product or to run the business? If you're selling to a car company, you may be selling them a headlamp, a seal beam headlamp. They're using that to make the car. But when they buy an LED fixture, an LED lamp to run their business, that's a different application, isn't it? And also you have to understand how they purchase. What's their policies? Who are the buyers? And also situation factors like seasonal, just-in-time needs, delivery, order size, urgency. Those are the things that are necessary for you as a company to understand if you want to do business with another business. So segmentation goals are very simple. They have to be profitable, identifiable, accessible, actionable, and compatible with your company goals. There's got to be a strategic fit here. That's segmentation. Now let's talk about targeting. Once you understand and go and break down your particular market that you want to serve by segments, now you have to decide which customers you want to sell in those particular segments. And how do you choose your segments? I think there's there's lots of ways to do that, but this is the 2 most important basic ways to choose a target, to choose your customers in that particular segment. The first thing is, what's the potential for profitability in that segment? What's the current size? What is the middle class? What's the size of the middle class in that particular segment? What's the growth? What are the min-max levels as far as sales and profitability is concerned? You can put numbers to this. Levels of competition. Can you differentiate? Do you have the potential to clearly differentiate your offering from the competition that's already in this particular segment? and what's the behavior and expectations of the customer. This is the bottom up choice for a target. The top down is whether or not it's a strategic fit for your particular business and for your particular offering. Does the firm have the resources and do you have the resources and the capabilities to serve these businesses effectively? What are the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats? You got to do the SWOT analysis if you want to do effective target selection. And then what are the brand loyalty measures in that particular target? That's whether that's a strategic fit to your business. And when you deal with a target market, remember it's all customer-centric, customer-centric. Number one, you could go after a mass market, and when you do that, you're sending a message, the same message to everyone in that market. That doesn't mean you're going to serve every single customer in that market, but it's a mass market that you can present your particular offering and communicate the same message to everyone in that market. That's called an undifferentiated target market strategy. A differentiated strategy is you have a different message in the same campaign to two different target markets. If you're selling McDonald's in India, you know you're not going to offer any hamburgers, okay? So there you have to change your particular communications in that particular market. Concentrated niche means that you're going to specialize in a specific area to a specific audience. That communication is definitely specific. And a micro market is dealing with local markets. Small businesses tend to deal with local markets in a very thorough way, much more than a large corporation that just don't have the resources to focus on each local market as a small business does. Generating target markets. This is the same thing that we talked about. And when we segment it by age, and we also target by age, and the key demographic is 25 to 54. You target age groups based on your product offering. Other influences as far as targets are concerned are, in this country, we're almost 50-50 between women and men. And as you know, men and women are different. And when they're different, that means their needs are different. Their preferences are different. You need to understand that. You also should be measuring birth rates and aging and whether they're families and married and single people households, household income, spending behavior. These are all areas that you need to focus on in order to serve that target market better than your competition. Let me talk about this for a minute. This is restaurants, and I know you're not in the restaurant business, and I'm going to get into the lighting business next, but the restaurant business has a macro market and a micro target market. Macro and micro. The macro market in the restaurant business is broken down into two macro markets, the fast food market and the full service market. The micro market for the fast food is broken down this way. And this isn't my breakdown. This is the industry, the way they break down their particular industry. Sandwich, ice cream, pizza, chicken, coffee, and salad. That's the way they break down their industry. So macro is the fast food industry, and those are the micro segments. Full service breaks their particular micro target markets this way. And you can see how they break it down. The reason being that they all have preferences. They all have specific needs. And if you're a company that's serving the restaurant macro industry, you need to understand the micro target markets. But let's get into lighting, because that's most of my subscribers are in the lighting business, as I have been for the last 60 years, okay? When I was starting out, we only had two sales divisions, the industrial commercial sales division and the consumer division. Well, I guess that worked back then, but today the lighting industry, the macro target markets for the lighting industry. I broke it down into 16 particular macro target markets. One thing about lighting is everybody's using it. It's a mass market, isn't it? Everybody uses lighting one way or another. So breaking it down into specific macro markets is important. But more important than that is breaking it down into the micro target markets. Retail is the macro, but micro is, think about the different markets in the retail macro target market. There's 4 million stores out there doing $4.4 trillion in sales. And these are the micro target markets. And I think you're familiar with all of them, right? So it's not just supermarkets and general merchandise and discounters. You got the furniture stores and auto showrooms and museums. And this, if you want to sell lighting products, you can pick and choose the ones where you want to be the expert in, and you are going to serve that particular micro target market better than your competition. Let's look at, and then of course there's Amazon, the big kahuna in the business, right? Since they did, every single one of those micro target markets are online today. They're all selling online, and Amazon is the reason for that. If there's any company that's a mass marketeer, it's Amazon. Let's talk about hospitality. That's a macro market. But if you break it down into micro target markets, it's hotel chains, it's motels, it's social clubs, it's catering, and it's country clubs. I hope you're getting the idea of what I mean when I call it a macro target market and a micro. Let's get into healthcare. That's a macro market. The micro target markets for healthcare, hospitals, medical offices, dental offices, assisted living, nursing homes. As you can see, you can specifically target segments of the macro market in order to position yourself better than your competition. And that's the next subject when we talk is about positioning. Positioning is now, once you define the market, the segments, and the customers you want to target in that segment, now the next step is, how do you position yourself in the minds of the customer? Position your brand in the mind of your customers. And the one thing that I like you to think about focusing on, and this is something that you have to do individually and personally, do you have a sustainable competitive advantage? A sustainable competitive advantage, which means that it's an advantage that cannot be duplicated by your competitor, not easily. Okay, one of the examples I give is Heinz ketchup. It's a mass product, correct? But have you ever been to a restaurant that doesn't have Heinz ketchup on the table? It's because they have complete saturation of that particular product in every single fast food and restaurant in the country. Very difficult for Hunt's or any of the other companies to duplicate that particular sustainable advantage. Brand loyalty, very important. But here's another step beyond brand loyalty, and that is people that are not only loyal to the product, but they're advocates of the product. They talk about the product in very positive ways, and that's a very strong position to be in any industry. Content marketing, your communications become important. Do you have a dominant market share? And do you need to change your position? Over time, that may be necessary in order to target specific markets. In every market, you need to decide not only what your sustainable competitive advantage is, but what is your unique value proposition? The unique proposition, and this I got right from AI. You know, I go to AI now in every one of these presentations. And this is what AI says is what a customer-centric value proposition does. It's a unique value of your product and service. It directly addresses your customer's specific needs. It benefits that customer and what they can expect from it when they buy your product. in the marketplace, vis-a-vis the competition, why they should choose you over your competitive options. It solves specific pain points. Every customer has a need, a pain point, a problem that needs to be solved. Can you solve it better than your competition? Solve it both physically and perceptually. Bring value added to the lives of businesses and to your customers. Can you bring unique value to them? Essentials for effective positioning, 3 things. Very simple. I like to keep things as simple as possible. You got to deliver on the promise. You got to be consistent in your messaging and the product that you produce or the service that you offer. And you got to keep it simple, distinctive. People don't remember complicated messages and complicated things. If you can do those 3 things, you're in a very good position to have an effective position with your customer. This is something that we teach at Monmouth, and it's in our managerial marketing textbook, and I thought I'd add it, just these 2 slides. It's a semantic brand positioning. They talk about 4 things: that a brand has to have relevance, stretch, differentiation, and credibility, and they all have to be customer-centric. What do they mean? Relevance means they make a strong connection to the consumer. I don't think any company has made a stronger connection to the consumer than Amazon. It satisfies the customer's needs, that solves the pain points that customers were asking for. Stretch. I use Barbie as an example of stretch. This is a 60-year-old toy. Think about a toy, the toy industry. It's the most fickle industry I think there is. Think about the gifts that you gave your kids last Christmas. You're probably not even on the list for this Christmas. That's because it's an industry that is a very fickle industry. Not for Barbie, because why? Their brand continues to be a very effective brand and at the insistence level. And it's because of the strength of that brand, they were able to foster extensions and stretch that brand to other items, and that's why they're as successful as they are. Differentiation stands out significantly with that sustainable competitive advantage. Credibility, will consumers believe you? They have to believe what you're saying. When you say to a customer that you have the lowest prices in the industry, like Walmart, you better consistently show that you have the best prices. That's the credibility that consumers are looking for. And this particular slide is the one that I like to summarize positioning. Every single brand goes through 4 stages. When you introduce a product for the first time, the first particular stage of developing a strong brand loyalty is a thing called awareness. That's all you're trying to communicate to the marketplace, is that this product is aware. The second phase is, and your advertising is going to have to shift to say, this is an acceptable product and a product that you should look at as an acceptable product to serve your needs. And then you want to move that position to preference. You want the consumer to prefer your particular brand over your competition. But the highest level of brand loyalty is what we call insistence. That means that the only product that you will buy is that particular brand. Not many products reach that particular brand, and I put a couple on here that have reached that. Now, that doesn't mean 100%, but all the products underneath that word is products that pretty much have the insistence level of brand loyalty. Okay, are there any questions before I close? Please send me any questions that you have. I've answered a couple, and I appreciate those, so please send me any questions that you have on any of this. The benefits for implementing customer-centric STP. Again, I went to AI and asked them, what are the benefits? And here's what they came up with. And I think these are important. AI is very important into crystallizing and summarizing presentations like this, I think. It gives you a deeper understanding of customer needs and preferences. It identifies your ideal customers and develops detailed profiles. It concentrates on the most promising segments that you should be going after. Improves customer engagement and higher response rates. It creates a strong competitive advantage and brand differentiation. It crafts more relevant and impactful marketing messages. It focuses on opportunities with the highest potential for return. That's what you're looking for. You want to get the highest return on your particular marketing efforts. Identifies new market opportunities and potentials for growth. These are very strong. I think if you listen to this presentation, make a copy of this particular slide and make sure you understand why STP is as important in your marketing effort as anything you'll do. This is STP, and it's segmentation, which is a diverse need and preference of the market. Targeting focuses on the resources that you have as a company on your most viable customer groups, and positioning creates a clear and compelling image in the minds of your customer. And I want to leave you with this final message. Mass generic messaging that attempts to appeal to everyone often fails to resonate with anyone. Again, thank you, FSG, for sponsoring this particular session. I look forward to doing the next one next month. Thanks for listening.